Isthmian Games or Isthmia were one of the Panhellenic games of ancient Greece, and were named after the Isthmus of Corinth, where they were held. As with the Nemean Games, the Isthmian Games were held both the year before and the year after the Olympic Games, while the Pythian Games were held in the third year of the Olympiad cycle. Origin: the games were reputed to have originated as funeral games for Melichetes, instituted by Sisyphus, legendary founder and king of Corinth, who discovered the dead body and buried it subsequently on the Isthmus. In Roman times, Melichetes was worshipped in the region. Theseus, legendary king of Athens, expanded Melichetes' funeral games from a closed nightly rite into a fully fledged athletic games event which was dedicated to Poseidon, open to all Greeks, and was at a suitable level of advancement and popularity to rival those in Olympia, which were founded by Heracles. Theseus arranged with the Corinthians for any Athenian visitors to the Isthmian Games to be granted the privilege of front seats. Another version states that Cypris, a lost tyrant of Corinth in the 7th century BC, returned to the games in old splendor. If we are to accept the traditional date of the first Olympic Games, we can say that the first Isthmian Games would have been held in 582 BC. At least until the 5th century BC, the winners of the Isthmian Games received a wreath of celery. Later, the wreath was altered such that it consisted of pine leaves. Victors could also be honored with a statue or an ode. Besides these prizes of honor, the city of Athens awarded victorious Athenians with an extra 100 drachmas. History: from 228 BC to 229 BC onwards, the Romans were allowed to take part in the games. The games of 196 BC were used by Titus Quinctius Flamininus to proclaim the freedom of the Greek states from Macedonian hegemony. Compare Appian's account. When he had arranged these things with them, he went to the Isthmian Games, and, the stadium being full of people, he commanded silence by trumpet and directed the herald to make this proclamation: the Roman people and Senate, and Flamininus, the general, having vanquished the Macedonians and Philip their king, order that Greece shall be free from foreign garrisons, not subject to tribute, and shall live under her own customs and laws. Thereupon there was great shouting and rejoicing, and a scene of rapturous tumult, and groups here and there called the herald back in order that he might repeat his words for them. They threw crowns and fillets upon the general and voted statues for him in the cities. They sent ambassadors with golden crowns to the capital at Rome to express their gratitude, and inscribed themselves as allies of the Roman people. Such was the end of the Second War between the Romans and Philip. Since the game's inception, Corinth had always been in control of them. When Corinth was destroyed by the Romans in 146 BC, the Isthmian Games continued, but were now administered by Sisyphus. Corinth was rebuilt by Caesar in 44 BC. Corinth recovered ownership of the games at some point between 07 BC and AD 3. The Isthmian Games thereafter flourished until Theodosius I suppressed them as a pagan ritual contests, comparable to the Olympic Games. Among other competitions were chariot races, pancration, wrestling, musical and poetical contests, in which women were allowed to compete, boxing. Famous victors: in 216 BC, Clytomachus of Thebes won wrestling, boxing and pancration on the same day. Isthmian truce: before the games began, a truce was declared by Corinth to grant athletes safe passage through Greece. In 412 BC, even though Athens and Corinth were at war, the Athenians were invited to the games as usual.